One of the popular classes within the Toyo Tyres MSA British Rallycross Championship is the combination of Super 1600s, hot hatches and BMW Minis. They're all two-wheel drive, so stick them together on one grid and you're guaranteed spectacular racing. There's also a nice mix of car as well as we get ready for the semi-finals. Paul Coney, the man to beat in Super 1600. Martin Hawks, the best of those in the BMW Minis. And of those going for glory in hot hatch, there's Leanne Sedgwick versus Thomas Martinak. This semi-final good to go. Darren Scott on pole position, David Bell alongside Andrew Hawks on the outside of row 1. Phil Chicken on row 2 in the white Citroen makes a demon start, squeezes through the gap in the middle, and it is Darren Scott who hits the loose first. Now, he had a miserable time up at Croft. He needs a good result out of all of this. Chicken is second and David Bell third then as they turn their way across the loose for the first time. Making the run towards the Devil's Elbow. Now through that left-hander and climb uphill. Darren Scott it is who leads the way. The Pertec backed car up front. Phil Chicken brakes as late as he dares for the hairpin, but there's loads of understeer and he pushes out wide and loses ground against the race leader. So Darren Scott has a bigger advantage at the bottom of the hill than he did at the top of it. Phil Chicken again understeers his way into paddock. Good battling going on in the minis, but David Bell is away and gone in that class. He's got the lead of the category. Phil Chicken comes across the loose then in the MB Motorsport prepared car. MB is Mike Boak, and Mike's racing himself here this weekend. Indeed, he was fastest in Q1. Scott versus Chicken, both in Super 1600 spec Citroen C2s, and these the more modified, the faster cars. They're going to take some stopping in this race, that's for sure. Jenny Hawks in her Mini, bouncing across the loose, chasing after Terry Durden. Her uncle Andrew Hawks further up the road as well as they work their way through the Devil's Elbow. Now to the hairpin they run. The Minis, not as rapid as the Super 1600 Citroens, but very competitive in their own right, their own category. And a bit of damage, I think, there on Andrew Hawks' car as he comes out of the hairpin. Jenny accelerates downhill at the back of that little group, falling away slightly from Terry Durden, who Sam Bradley you'll find out on track as well in the other semi-final. The Minis continue to squabble, but up front Darren Scott looks as though he's on his way to a semi-final win. Top 4 go through to the final, and there are individual points awarded to the 3 categories, the hot hatch, the BMW Minis and the Super 1600s. Now there, Terry Durden is closing up onto the back of Andrew Hawks now as they work their way uphill. Darren Scott, though, comes through the chicane and he's on his own. He's going to serve the Joker lap this time, so he peels to the left, works his way round the conventional race circuit run through Chessons here at Lydden, but then you go right, you go left and jump down that step. Is he going to hang on to the lead against Phil Chicken? Yes, he is. So Darren Scott survives. He still leads the way as they work their way to the Devil's Elbow now. Turning their way through that left-hander and then uphill. You've got to be good through that tight left, otherwise you start to lose momentum on that important climb up to the top of the circuit. Terry Durden, in the meantime, in his red Mini, hunting down Andrew Hawks. David Bell has been the man to beat in the Mini class day long. But here, as they work their way into paddock, Darren Scott versus Phil Chicken, and it looks like Darren Scott is going to be able to survive. He had damage at Croft, and that really did for him there. Points-wise, he works his way through the chicane. He's got another lap to run as now Chicken serves the Joker, and so that gap is going to be a large one at the end of this run through the right-hander for Phil Chicken, because he's got the slower lap to do. He was virtually on the tail of Darren Scott. He's going to be a long way adrift when you next see him. There in the meantime is Andrew Hawks fending off Terry Durden. They are getting closer and closer and closer. Terry Durden inching up onto the back as they work their way through, but Andy Hawks is going to be able to keep him at bay, I reckon. Across the loose they come. They hit the tarmac now, but Darren Scott is almost home and dry. Top 4 go into the final, and he is now looking to take on Paul Coney in that last race of the day. Checkered flag at the ready. Semi-final success to Darren Scott. So Darren Scott wins his semi-final from Phil Chicken and David Bell. Andrew Hawks takes 4th ahead of Terry Durden. Jenny Hawks in 6th. Pole position for Paul Coney. Martin Hawks alongside. Drew Bellaby is on the outside of row 1 as we go racing. Paul Coney just storms away, but Craig Lomax could be the other one to watch in all of this. He serves the Joker lap early on with his Super 1600 spec car as the leaders work their way now across the loose, but Paul Coney, who won at Croft, is going to be oh so hard to stop here, I reckon. Leanne Sedgwick there, at the back of the group in the Citroën, rejoins the tarmac and heads now towards the Devil's Elbow. Thomas Marciniak just up the road ahead, and you've got Bradley Durdin's Mini at the head of that little gaggle there, look, going towards the hairpin. Marciniak not far behind as they work their way through the hairpin. Up front though, Paul Coney getting away. Coney, an experienced and successful Super 1600 racer, class champion, very successful not only in the UK but on mainland Europe as well, and he works his way to tarmac, to loose again, into Cheshunt's Drift. There is Bradley Durdin, former junior champion, came via Suzuki Swift into Minis during last year. You've seen his dad out. Now, is Bradley going to be able to get himself through into the final? He's keeping Tomasz Marciniak at bay as they work their way now into the Devil's Elbow, but Marciniak turns through that left-hander and powers uphill. Lee Keeler lower down the order, pressing on, but good that we've got plenty of cars across all three classes represented this weekend here at Lydden, and also some new names coming into the championship, which is good to see. Now there, look, working his way onto the loose at paddock, Tomasz Marciniak closing up onto the tail of Bradley Durdin, and Durdin now having to think about defending, so he's falling away from Martin Hawks. Marciniak, though, this time will serve the Joker lap. Paul Coney is away and gone. There is Marciniak about to go through that chicane put in around the Joker lap. Bradley Durdin skips his way across the loose, but Paul Coney is inching his way towards a semi-final win, and with it to a front row start in the final. There with a mirror flapping is Tomasz Marciniak as he heads uphill. It's one of the hot hatch spec cars, and Marciniak should be on target here, I would have thought, to be the best place of them. We'll see how it all unravels after everybody has done the Joker. But through the chicane comes Paul Coney in the ultra-smart Vauxhall Corsa VXR. In the Mini battle, still Bradley Durdin trying to work his way into contention, and Craig Lomax a long way back, not having had a great day with his Citroën. There is Drew Bellaby with her Mini. Sister Page has already had a great day within the Super Nationals, and he's going to be hard to beat, at least as far as a podium finish is concerned, when we get to their final later on in the day. But Drew Bellaby here, less experienced, still learning about rallycross, but going strongly nonetheless. Up at the hairpin, Martin Hawks from the middle of the front row chases Paul Coney. There's Bradley Durdin up to third now, hunting down Hawks. Working their way in towards the chicane at paddock. Through the right, and then there's that little flick that launches you back onto tarmac, and this time Paul Coney stays on the tarmac for longer because he will go and serve the Joker. Behind him there is Martin Hawks, and Coney's got a problem, look, because he's slowed right down. He's going to have to work really hard. I thought for a moment he was going to pull off there, but he's going to have to work really hard on this last lap to survive. Right up behind him is Martin Hawks, and what was an enormous advantage has disappeared for Paul Coney. Across the loose, onto the tarmac. He gets going again, he does pull away, but a whole heap of time was lost there, going down towards Cheshunt's Drift. Now what's going on for Paul Coney? Bradley Durdin is now delayed. Drew Bellaby up to the outside line. Drew Bellaby going for position here, round the outside, and she secures it going into the hairpin. So has Paul Coney got back up to speed? Can he survive? We're on the last lap of the race. A big scare going into Cheshunt's Drift for him. Here he is. Now everything looks absolutely perfect once again, but Paul Coney comes through to take the checkered flag to win. But where did all the time go? Second goes the way of Martin Hawks, and who's going to be third? It's just Bellaby from Durdin. Let's confirm those results. Paul Coney the winner from Martin Hawks, Drew Bellaby third, Bradley Durdin fourth ahead of Tomasz Marciniak, and then Craig Lomax in sixth. The final about to get underway here at Lydden. Pole position Paul Coney with Darren Scott and Martin Hawks on row one. Phil Chicken and David Bell on row two ahead of Drew Bellaby, Andrew Hawks and Bradley Durdin at the back. Lights go green, away they go. Darren Scott bogs down and actually gets in the way of Phil Chicken, so he bogs down even more, and Chicken is about to fall to the back of the pack. Paul Coney leads the way. Darren Scott picks up pace now as they work their way across the loose for the first time. Andrew Hawks has made a good start and goes third. Bradley Durden there is fourth as they turn their way onto tarmac for the first time of asking. Now they work their way uphill. Hairy hill it is, and then the hairpin at the top of the lap, and that's Phil Chicken's day done. Stationary already, so he did get bogged down in the traffic, but maybe something broke as well. Drive shaft potentially, of course, a lot of strain goes through the drive shaft in a rallycross car off the line. But Paul Coney's bulletproof Vauxhall leads the way with Darren Scott tucked up behind as they work their way together down through paddock. In third place at the moment, you've got Andrew Hawks up from the back row, Bradley Durden behind him, then Drew Bellamy, then Martin Hawks as they bounce their way across the loose. Phil Chicken's car sat by the side of the road, day done, and very wide indeed. There goes Andrew Hawks, so he loses third place. Up the inside of him goes Bradley Durden. Through they turn together, the two minis battling, and Paul Coney has a real race on his hands here in Super 1600 look, because Darren Scott is staying with him. Coney has been the man to beat in Q2 and Q3 and in his semi-final, but he can't shake off Darren Scott now as they run downhill. They're heading down towards paddock, turning their way through the right-hander that brings them onto the loose, and Coney has a real race on his hands as David Bell now has got Drew Bellamy tucked up behind him. One for the loose, one for the joker. Scott goes for the joker lap, so this will give Paul Coney a bigger advantage. You've got to be careful on that joker lap, not to go too rapidly into that little chicane and scrub off speed. You've got to be smooth and tidy and maintain momentum. Paul Coney is at the devil's elbow, so you can see now how much time you lose by doing the joker. But, of course, Coney will have to serve it as well before the race is run. Through the devil's elbow goes the mini fight with David Bell there, keeping at bay Drew Bellamy. There's Martin Hawks up the road ahead. But it can all change, of course, as people cycle through that joker lap. Paul Coney looks as though he is on target for a win, but we won't know for sure until he's done that joker lap. Then we'll see how close Darren Scott is as they work their way through Cheston's Drift. The minis here at paddock, still Bell from Bellamy. David Bell, multiple mini champion, Drew Bellamy behind. There, Paul Coney just hangs on to the advantage. He's done the joker lap, he's still ahead, but only just of Darren Scott. Darren has got really 3 corners, 3 chances. This is the first of them, the devil's elbow. Can he sprint up the inside, heading up the hill? He looks to the outside line, can't do it. Into the braking zone, now on the inside of the hairpin. And again, there's a face full of Paul Coney. He gives him a push because he's got the pace, but he can't find a gap. Downhill, into paddock, he's got to launch it up the inside now or never, and Paul Coney will have done enough, I reckon, to hang on in there. Through he comes, checkered flag at the ready, and Paul Coney wins in Super 1600. Paul Coney's win maintains his lead in the championship from Craig Lomax and Darren Scott. Phil Chicken fourth in Super 1600 from Mike Boak. In the minis, Martin Hawks now clear of David Bell. Bradley Durden only 2 points back from Drew Bellamy fourth, Andrew Hawks fifth, and Rob Methel in 6th place. And what's going on in Hot Hatch? Thomas Marciniak it is who heads 3 points of an advantage over Leanne Sedgwick.